y'all? Welcome back to the For the Culture podcast. I am your host, Zeze. This is your host, Afro Elite.
How you guys doing? How you doing?
And as I'm guessing a lot of people are wondering, yes, we are missing our third party. Sadly, our good brother Alpha could not make it to this episode, but the show must go on. We
Hold
are
it down for him.
Okay, shout out to our brother though. Now, just to give context, today is November the 5th, the day after my birthday. But also Election Day, okay? It's a very important event going on right now. It's a lot of people out here voting for their lives, people thinking that this is, do or die. They trying to be on the right side or the worst side of history, however you want to look at it. And so we are still awaiting the election results, just to be clear. We're not, anything we say is out of the context of who we know has won after this comes out, okay? So I do gotta, of course, start the podcast. So I gotta start by saying, who you think gonna win? Do you want somebody to win? Number one. But number two, who do you think gonna win, even regardless?
Okay. Logically, I'm gonna say who I want to win. To be honest, don't want either of them personally. I don't like them personally. I think a lot of people have this understanding of you wanting somebody to win because you like them personally. And I don't like either of them personally. It's not like any of them are a friend or an icon to me. But who do I think would win? Who do I think would be better for just the pure sake logically when it comes to the black community, and who would do the less damage? I would say Donald Trump. I'd rather him win. And the reason why is because I want to show, and we're going to get into it, I want to show the Democratic Party a lesson as far as ignoring and neglecting the black community for the last 4 years, the last 8 years under Obama. And that has consequences, and now it's time for the bill to be due. It's time for them to pay their price. Logically, I believe Donald Trump is going to win. I mean, he's been running for the last couple of years. She just entered the race, five months ago.
Yeah.
This is unprecedented. Never in history has a person jump into a presidential race in 5 months and then beat a former president. That's never happened in history. She was rated the worst VP of all time. She doesn't really have any support, even any black support, as much as they try to orchestrate that and make it seem like she does. She really doesn't. Logically speaking, she's been making several mistakes. Not to say that Trump hasn't. She's been making several mistakes in her campaign, and I just logically seeing the way the swing states are going, I don't see her winning. I just don't.
Honestly,
unless it's a finesse.
Honestly, I was about to say the same thing though. That's insane. I feel the same way, to be honest. I will say, like you said, unless there's the finesse, honestly, let's just be real. Unless they want a civil war, because that's what I feel. That's what I feel. If she wins, I'm seeing people. It's gonna be worse than people just running up on the Capitol.
Yeah,
I think niggas is about to go to war for sure. Okay, especially these white people. They not gonna give a damn. So I think that's the major concern if she does win, but I just don't think, as far as the popular vote, for sure, I don't see her winning over Donald Trump. It's a lot more black people, like you said, that's supporting. I'm not going to say they're supporting Trump, but that's not supporting the Democrats. You know what I'm saying? In general, but definitely not Kamala. Even with all the propaganda they push. So yeah, honestly, I'm just be real. From talking to people day to day, I honestly think more people would vote for Trump, or you know what I'm saying? It just would make more sense that more people are more right leaning this going around. White, black, whatever. I'm gonna just be real. It just makes more sense. But we shall see. We shall see. Who the electoral votes go to. Yeah. We're gonna see who is chosen, because we all know
selected.
The president. Yeah, selected. We know the president is selected, not elected. We here with it. We here with it. If you know, you know. But that does bring up a point though, because a lot of FBAs specifically, a lot of us, sadly have been on the Democratic plantation for a while now. You know, we've been eating butter biscuits up on the left side for a minute, for too long, which goes back to your point of even trying to teach the right side a lesson, because I think that is a point that a lot of black Americans are trying to make this year, whether that's just sitting out or voting right, is trying to show the left, like, look, y'all not about to just keep getting my vote for free, because that's what's happening. Yes. And sadly, we've been kind of programmed, like, I know most, just statistically, most black Americans are on the left leaning, you know what I'm saying, or have voted Democrat, especially for the last 40 plus years. And that kind of goes to show the kind of shift that's happening, because a lot of the older generation are the ones that's kind of pushing that on us. Okay, a lot of the newer voters are not as set, on staying on the left. And you see that a lot with our grandmothers. I mean, even our mother, my mother, I got family, I'm just saying, that has voted Democrat for a long time. And even talking to them, I'm like, they like, well, we can't let Trump in. I'm like, nigga, God, okay. But that's just like the rhetoric of a lot of the older generation, because all they know is like, well, we can't vote for those racist Republicans. We can't vote for, they're not going to do anything. The left ain't doing nothing. They really ain't going to do nothing. So we can't, there's like almost a bit of a scared mentality. You know what I'm saying? A lack of confidence there. You know what I'm saying? Or even just a hesitation, any sort of trust to just get out of the left field. I just want to ask you personally, are you getting pressure from your family to vote Democrat?
Am I getting pressured? I'm getting questioned. I'm not getting pressured necessarily, because I mean, my family knows about what I do on YouTube, and they know about all my activism work and everything. So they know I'm pretty solid on my stances on certain things. But they question. I had a couple of my friends from college, and I had my cousin be like, "You're for real a Trump supporter? Then you're really a MAGA member?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not a MAGA member." And I think that's one of the things too, where people feel like it's all the way this or it's all the way that, and there's absolutely no in between. And it does get awkward. I know when my family doesn't mind talking about black people stuff, and to them, they believe that they're pro-black. They believe that. But then when it comes to politics, you see this, they become completely brainwashed. You see the indoctrination of the Democratic Party. And that's something that's really been groomed into our community for the longest time. And it's really hard to divorce yourself from that if that's how you've been groomed into being, which is what our grandparents were, because some of our grandparents or great-grandparents, they were the first people to vote at all. And then they groomed them. And because of the Democratic Party, they groomed them, their children, and then their children, and then their children. And then really it's the millennials. I kind of want to say millennials and Gen Z. I get my generations mixed up. But really it's the under 40 crowd, I would say. Under 40 crowd, because I don't know what y'all, I don't want to offend nobody. But it's the under 40 crowd that's really divorcing themselves from that mentality. A lot of the reason for that is because during the time of civil rights, we have to understand it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago where a white person got to vote for free and a black person had to pay to vote. It wasn't long ago where black people were not allowed to vote at all, or you had to own land, or there was a bunch of red tape and things like that in order for you to vote. And then the Voting Rights Act got passed, and to the black people there, the Democratic Party was the only political party advocating for them. And they fell in love with the Democratic Party. They had a lot of respect and reverence for the Democratic Party, because at the time, that's the only way we got anything. I don't think they gave themselves, the previous generations didn't give themselves enough credit. The previous generations kind of gave the victory and our success to the white Democrats, which goes to something that we're starting to divorce ourselves from too, because we were always told that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and it was the white people who freed the slaves. So we've always given our accomplishments to white liberals. That's something that has been in our culture for too long, and we have to divorce ourselves from. Going from that, they've indoctrinated and they bred, okay, well, these are the good guys. They're not perfect, but they're better than Trump. We hear that all the time. I understand why you're mad at the Democratic Party. I get it, but they're better than Trump. And that's one of the things that I get told all the time. Well, they're better than Trump. They're better than Trump. But when you compare apples to apples, and I'm not talking about Trump, Biden, Harris, I'm talking about the parties, Republican, Democrat, what they allow and what they don't allow. What is the big difference in the quality of life, of black people living in a liberal state or a conservative state? What is the difference in the quality of life and how we are treated by the state, by the police, there's really no difference. And you can split hairs about the little differences in maybe California or Texas, but we have to understand that both of them are two wings on the same bird of white supremacy.
And we suffer in the same under each. That's a fact. Yeah, that's a fact. But that does make me want to make the point of saying, at least, that the black people that are afraid, because look, I think probably since honestly, since the presidential election started or the campaign started, people been trying to label me a Trump supporter. Yeah. Hands up, don't shoot. Wait a minute, I never said I was a Trump supporter. Okay, I've actually literally said that multiple times. I'm not a Trump supporter. Okay, but even with that being said, just me criticizing the Dems, like, bruh, they will literally, like, it's like you don't have so you must be supporting. You're not saying it's about the Republicans, but what about Trump? And it's like, again, it's two sides of the same white supremacist coin, but at the same time with the Democrats, it's a sheep and wolf, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and wolf, so I'm sorry, it's a wolf in sheepskin, you know? So it's a little easier to call out the dumb shit that Donald Trump do, the racist shit that the people on the right do. I mean, he just had a Republican at his rally talking about Puerto Rico is a damn a pile of garbage. Yeah. Egregious. That was not a good look. But obviously, like, nigga, duh. You know, that's not something surprising coming from that side. But on the left side, they play into our feelings, into the symbolism. It's, Black Lives Matter. But then they really feel the same way as the people on the right, you know? Yes. But they do that just to pander, just to get our vote, you know? So to the black people out there that is thinking about going right, or whether you just want to be independent, whether you want to go Green Party, whether you want to sit out and not vote at all, baby, that's your decision. And I don't think none of us should be shamed because of what we chose. Honestly, we all still under the system of white supremacy, baby. It ain't gonna matter. You just choosing which master is better. So let's just be real. Okay? So no judgment from me. Let me say that. And I do think we need to stop passing judgment from others who do that, because you're right. There is a nuance in the middle. Sometimes, especially when you're just thinking about the parties and their ideals, you know, just from a general basis. Yeah, a lot of the people on the right, the conservative side does align more with FBA culture. Let's just be real with Black American culture. We align more. We're more conservative. We tend to go more conservative rather than liberal, which is all right. But that does make me think too, just to stay on as far as the pressures we get from voting. There was something that happened in Illinois. With a brother who voted. What happened? We were viral.
Yeah, okay. So in Illinois, during early voting, what happened is that he was young. He might have been 18 or 19. It was his first time voting. So he just legally turned the legal age requirement in order to vote in the state of Illinois. So he was there, and his mother was over his shoulder, and his mother took a picture of him writing his ballot in for Kamala Harris. I hope that's how it's pronounced. Whatever.
Kamala.
Yeah.
Kabama. Whichever.
So she was writing that in like, I'm so proud of my son voting for a black woman and everything. And someone who's worked with campaigns and elections, I understand that you're not supposed to be over somebody's shoulder while they're casting their ballot. That's supposed to be them personally able to do that. That's against federal law. Now, is that against that law in every state? Or I know it's against state law. It might be allowed in some states. I'm not sure of it. I think it's illegal everywhere, but I know for a fact, because I live there, it's illegal in Illinois. Not only that, can nobody be there and record you taking your ballot or whatever the case is. The fact that that is his mother also leads into voter intimidation. It also leads into, you don't know what he might have chose. He might have chose Green Party. He might have wrote in couch or reparations. He might have chose Donald Trump, whatever. Or he might not have chose a president at all. He might have filled all of the other ballots, but did not choose that ballot. But the fact that this is his mother standing over his shoulder, like micromanaging him, making sure that he put his ballot in for Harris, shows that there's a lot of voter intimidation, which is telling to how the poll watchers are allowing this to happen. And going into the voter fraud that we've seen with this time, and then we've seen with the time when Biden won in 2020, we see a lot of the voting fraud and all that coincidentally tends to always go to the Democratic Party. There's been videos online where people pressing the ballot for Trump and it's not selecting, and then they press it for Harris and it's selecting. I've seen a few videos, yeah. So there's another person who pressed their ballot for Trump and then it printed out Harris. So all of the stories, and these got millions of views all over the internet, all across the nation. It's not one or two places, but it's all across the nation. And it seems as if all of the time when there's some type of voter fraud or intimidation or anything, it always goes in favor of the Democratic Party. And this is something, going back to the mother and everything like that, this is something that when we talk about democracy, when we talk about fairness, they say that Trump favors a fascist. And I'll ask people, and I'm not here to defend Trump's character. I'm not here to defend Trump at all. But let's go into, because I'm not a fan, but let's go into how you would define fascism. Fascism being you really don't have people to have a choice. It's like a dictatorship. They say he's a dictator. Well, what choice did the Democrats give people? If you're acting as a dictator and micromanaging your own family member, your own son, do you think he would have voted for anything else with you standing over his shoulder like that? Mm-hmm. And this goes into what you were saying about the family shaming family members into voting that way. That goes into the grooming aspect I was discussing earlier.
Yeah, for real.
You know,
because I've talked to even younger voters. You know, I'm 28, just turned 28. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
I appreciate that. I was waiting on it when I mentioned earlier. You see, what's up? Anyway. So I just turned 28, but there are I've talked to voters that's 25 and under, maybe that 18 to 25 gap, and a lot of them is on some honestly, I don't even know who to pick. Honestly, I don't know. The people saying that this one is worse, this one is better, that one's worse. Honestly, I don't even know the pick. So you had a lot of voters just sitting out, voting couch, and even those voters are getting shamed because no vote is a vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, they say that.
It's like the goalposts just keep moving. They're like, yeah. So if you don't vote now, it's a vote for Donald Trump. You know.
Yeah.
Or if you vote even if you're Kamala, I'm sorry, Independent or Green Party, it's a vote for Donald Trump. You know, because we know they're not going to win the third party. People just forget that it's more than just fucking Trump and Harris just running. But people do move the goalposts again and say, well, if you vote for anybody outside of Harris, you're still voting for Trump because it's going to hurt. A lot of our families are pressuring us to go left. You know,
Yes.
The Dems alone, I don't know if I've ever seen them this desperate. Maybe it's because I'm still new. I've only really been in the voting game for about 10 years. That's not that long. That's only 2 elections for real. Over 8 years. So maybe that's why I'm noticing it more. But it seems like this is probably the most desperate I've ever noticed the Democrats become. Okay, they are fighting for their lives, trying to get specifically the black vote. Not only just the black vote, to be honest, any vote that they can gather some sort of support for their candidate Kamala. But specifically when it comes to black people, the pandering is out of this world. The shaming tactics they're using has been out of this world. Honestly, in just this year alone, within the last month or two, the last 2 months alone, it is outrageous, egregious, and everything in between. Touching on the elders, because not only is it our elders, but it's even the elders that we have been grown accustomed to throughout the years. Just that are pillars in our culture. You know, whether they've been criticized or not. I.e. Al Sharpton. You know, he has his things about him, but he is a big, political figure within the black community, and they have definitely used him along amongst us others. To try to pander to black people, or try to shame black people into voting. Did you see his video?
Yeah.
That he put up, or that video of him speaking?
Yeah, I saw that. Here's the thing, like you said about him being, whether people criticize him, some people love him, some people hate him. Yeah. The growing sentiment is that people are starting to dislike him because his shilling is starting to be more blatant now. But he's been in our community, and he's been a voice of influence in our community for too long. And this is a problem. Him, Jesse Jackson, these are people who they'll criticize racism as long as it does not make the Democratic Party look bad. Mm-hmm. So they won't say anything about Biden's racism, Harris's racism, but they will say something about Trump's racism or Republican racism. What he's trying to do with the video when he tried to shame black men in particular. Yeah. All right. He
said, for context, he did say that young people out here using street talk, locker room talk.
Yes.
To promote Trump. That's what he's
so
a little bit egregious.
That's a little shade that he's throwing. It's a little innuendo to talk about straight black men who are trying to think logically. You know how sometimes when a group of boys go out, they have what they call locker room talk, where they'll have candid conversations that they wouldn't have if females were around. And then females would have a conversation differently than if a male was around. You know what I'm saying? They would talk about different things. So when you talk about locker room talk, that talks about, and mostly with locker room talk, men are in a locker room that's after a sports game or before a sports game, and men are, they tend to be talking about masculine things. It's a stereotype. If you've seen movies like sports movies or things, men talking about women and talking about money and how strong they are and things like that. The bravado of, who's the more manly in the room. And that's something that's played up in the media. But when he's talking about locker room talk, he's talking about the entire image of masculine men. Sure. Because what they try to do is they try to make it seem as if you not supporting her, just blindly not supporting her, is in some form toxic masculinity. And that's something that gets said oftentimes. It's about toxic masculinity, or you think this is what a man really is, or things like that, or you don't know a man is putting a woman down, and things that are said like that. So when he said the thing about locker room talk and made the tie with sexism as a reason for her lack of male support, is him saying that it's about men having an ego thing when it comes to not electing a female.
Yeah, they definitely try to play that little sexism card, misogyny card.
Yeah.
For sure. But even within that, like, it's crazy. Like you just said, they will call out the racist on the right side, but not the left, because how are you going, that's racism within itself. For you to use a black man as a pawn to shame other black men and say, oh yeah, well y'all niggas just ain't, y'all just out here speaking locker room talk. Like there's not valid criticism going against the Democrats. You know what I'm saying? If there wasn't, then we would still be on the Democratic plantation happy as hell. Apparently there's a problem if we're seeing a shift in perspective, if we're seeing different voices starting to be heard on certain issues that are clearly reoccurring in a lot of parts of our communities. So yeah, that's a shame and tactic, and honestly, like I said, it's anti-black within itself, because belittling our intelligence, especially black men, because that's what they use that's for sure. And even moreover, they have specifically been going in on black men. Honestly, this whole campaign, black men have been getting like the worst parts of the propaganda. Like, y'all have been getting probably pandered to the worst outside of black women, because they had to twerk the vote and all this other dumb shit. It was a lot of egregious shit they had for black women as well. A lot of feminist propaganda they use. But for black men specifically, they even brought out Obama. They had a last minute black men's summit, mind you, with some of the Negroes that we've already been criticizing throughout these last couple of years, directly relating to the election. Like D.L. Hughley, who was the host of that egregious summit, and I want to say last minute summit because it was no coincidence they came up with that bullshit summit like 2 weeks before the election. That's crazy, with no promotion or nothing like that. It just came out like it did. Came out really from out of nowhere, to be honest, and that's because they was trying to get that last minute black male vote, and really the younger black men's vote as well. But I did not watch that, although I have seen a lot of criticism on that specifically, and I know you have. You did a stream on it.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Can you just give your thoughts a little bit, especially?
My thoughts, first off, like you said, it was last minute. It was poor. What they tried to do is, it was a prep rally. It wasn't a summit, to be honest. It wasn't something that was used for political dialogue. They didn't have anybody who had a slightly opposing view of anything, which is what the campaign has been doing. They'll go into like little barber shops, and then they'll have one person who will be critical of her, be all like, man, I don't really know. And then everybody else in the room kind of address him and then make him change his mind. They've done this in some stage barbershop events a few times. But this time, they didn't even attempt to do that. This time, what they did was they just had everybody around in this echo chamber pretty much propping her up, making it seem like she's the greatest woman to ever live. She's the most qualified. Every criticism of her is either false or it's sexist. And they brought that up a couple of times about how criticizing her record, saying that she locked up a bunch of people. That's just you trying to disguise your sexism. Even talking about she's not black. That's you trying to disguise your sexism.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's that's something that they've been doing is because black men are thinking more logically than ever before when it comes to our vote and using it strategically. And they know that when black men raise the issue, and a lot of black women are not on board as much as they say either.
For sure.
But they know when black men raise the issue, they see where the trend is going, and they see black men leading the trend. And this has been since 2012. So they need black men to get on board, but they're caught in a rock and a hard place because they can't do anything progressive for the community, which is the real criticism. So with the Black Men Summit, what they tried to do is create straw man reasons as to why we don't like her. Right. So they tried to create the reason of, oh, well, you might not like her because you think the economy was better under Trump. But the economy wasn't better under Trump. But they're not talking about how Biden and Harris messed the economy up or messed up inflation. When they say the thing about her record, they're all like, oh, no, she didn't lock up 1,000 black men for weed. That's not true. But they omit the fact that she did have black men be used as firefighters to put out fires in California.
Exactly. They didn't bring that up at all.
They didn't bring up the fact at all that she locked up black mothers for truancy.
Exactly.
And these are more of the bigger issues about her background than locking people up for weed. That's at the bottom of the list.
Right.
But they only can address that because that's the only thing that they can somewhat pass off.
They really pushing that marijuana thing. Even now, they keep pushing it. I feel like didn't she put that on her little letter to black men? Was like something about marijuana and possession.
Yeah, legalizing marijuana and then giving black men the access to get into the marijuana industry to become like producers or distributors or something.
Right, yeah, because all black people smoke weed. All black men, that's just number one on their priority list, is making sure we can smoke weed or be able to sell it. It's the greatest. You do have to talk about the differences in which they use, though, in which they use these tactics against us. Because, like I said, they have been targeting black men. And even on the flip side of that, they've been targeting black women. They had Megan Thee Stallion out here. They got Glorilla. I think Sexy Red even just endorsed whatchamacallit too. Just a lot of the black females that have some sort of influence in our community have been endorsing Kamala. And with that becomes, it's like they're trying to drive this gender divide, know? Yeah. And we've talked about this before on one of the last podcasts, at least from like a social aspect. But even when we're talking about it from this political aspect, it's like the way the Dems want to gain their vote or to gain power is through the separation of our family. It's like they want one of us. Even when I think when Kamala was first running, she had like a Zoom call and it was like 1,000 black women on it. You remember that?
It was like 44,000. They said 44,000 black women. Yeah, like immediately.
Yeah, right.
I called cap on that.
I don't believe that shit either. That was definitely some cameras off and it was some damn white Democratic SEALs back there.
I called cap. I said no. I said 1,000. Okay, 40. No,
40,000.
I said no.
But that's a part of the reason I think that we're seeing such a force or such a shift in the perspective of black voices, especially when it comes to new black media, about stepping away from the Democratic Party, because ultimately, even with our issues, we don't want to be separated. We didn't want to be separated in slavery. We didn't want to be seperated after slavery. As soon as we got a chance to get back together, we immediately got back together and started building after slavery. Okay? Yeah. And so that culture that's still very much heavy in our culture. That's been passed down through generations, is to make sure you stick with your family, stick with your men, stick with your women. And so with them trying to push this whole thing where it's like, oh, well, trying to villainize black men, like, oh, black women are going to be the one that save us. That even turns me off from the left side, because now you pushing the only form of protection that I got outside of me, away from me to this other side. And again, if we look at the ideals from both sides, why I'm not rooting for men to be in women's bathrooms. I'm not rooting for men to play in women's sports. I'm not rooting for tampons to go in men's bathrooms. I'm not rooting for for my child to be able to cut off their genitals if they feel they don't want them anymore. I'm not those sort of left-leaning extreme ideals. Even though abortion, one of the main things Kamala is running off of is abortion. Why the fuck? And mind you, this is a lady with no kids, with a white man with 2 white kids that ain't even hers. Why in the fuck would I want to hear that from you? Like, you're basically telling me I'm all for not having kids. I'm all for reducing the population of, that's what that's code language for someone like me, at least. But even to other black women, it's like, damn, even the more liberal black women are like, Like, yeah, that's important, but that's not at the top of the list. You know, that's not like in my top 5 issues because we are black women. We're black first. We got a lot more issues to deal with outside of abortions. Let's just be real. And abortions, even though they tried to do this whole thing like, oh, they're taking our rights away. Black people been doing shit before we was allowed to do it. Let me just say that. I don't want to get too egregious, but all I'm saying is 4 Color Girls was probably based off a real motherfucking story. I'm just saying, shit happens. Shit is real, okay? So I don't think that's a priority for most black women is making sure, okay, well, we gotta vote to make sure we got abortions. Like, that's not, the real problem is why we're even having the children. And at least on the right, there's some sort of formalities. There's a structure there to promote family. You know, that's one of the main things. Even when you hear Trump or JD Vance, when you hear him talk, we're going to protect American families. And even with him saying, we're going to protect women from these violent immigrants or something like that, regardless if they, like, a lot of these liberals came up here in the outroar, the women, oh my gosh, how is he going to protect us without our permission? Cardi B fumbling all over her damn, her speech at the rally talking about he said he's going to protect us no matter what. That's what masculine is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect you no matter what. They're supposed to protect you whether you like it or not, because sometimes you might not like it. But, nigga, you need this protection. Baby, this is what you need to do. And that's not always within the realm of what you're thinking. Sometimes you got to go outside your box and allow those things to happen. So even those little things is shifting us to the right. And, you know, have you seen that within at least some of the women you've talked to that's kind of just like, you know,
I definitely have seen that.
It's a little too liberal for me.
I have seen that. I've seen a lot of women be all like, they don't like the idea that they're leading the black community, the whole, you know, the backbone of the community is black women, because we're the ones out here getting all the jobs, and we're the ones out here doing all of this. Because when you say that, they don't like it when you say that, because what you're putting this misandry environment in the community, which destroys everything. Because women don't want to be caring for their men as if they're children.
Exactly.
Women don't mind caring for their children as children, but they don't want to be caring for the men as children. They don't want to be the protectors and fighters of the men, and they don't like the fact that the Democratic Party fakes the strong black woman thing. Now you're starting to see a lot of people talk about like soft girl era and all of that stuff, because a lot of people are starting to look at the consequences of the strong black woman era and all that stuff, and they're starting to see, hey, this was a finesse, you know, so they're not really on board with that anymore, you know, so they're getting themselves off of that, and then they're starting to look more logically into the party and start seeing past the fog of the propaganda, looking at, you know, well, this is a black woman, and don't you want to be aligned with your sister? Then you're looking at some of the agendas of the entire party and be like, well, no, I don't want my son coming home and saying I'm a girl and I had a surgery earlier today, but my teacher told me I didn't have to tell you. Or there was tampons in the boys' bathroom, or your daughter coming home because she got beat up in wrestling by a man, or and he said, I'm a female today, so let me get in this thing. A lot of women who are starting to see like, hey, this is not right. You know, so the fact that they've gone too extreme to that degree is what's making people be all like, okay, a lot of women be all like, that's not correct either. And when you talk about protecting women, I said this before, because they like to do the thing about in the Black Men's Summit with BET. They said, well, we got to protect black women. And the whole entire segment of protecting black women was about abortion.
Oh,
it was entirely about abortion.
Margaret Sanger, she would be so proud.
Was always used as an anti-black mechanism. Okay, it has a whole white supremacist history to it. Margaret Sanger, like you said. But they said protecting black women is abortion. And I said that is just as disrespectful as saying looking out for black men is prison reform. You know, as if the sum of black women, the sum of what they need and protecting them and looking out for their best interest is allowing them to terminate their pregnancy. Is giving them access to terminate their pregnancy. That's protection. Besides that, they're fine. These migrants coming over doing whatever, that we're not going to address that. These police doing whatever, they're not going to address that. They didn't protect Breonna Taylor. They didn't protect Sandra Bland. They didn't protect that others. There's so many other people that they did not protect. Yep. What was that one woman who had the pot? You know.
Oh, what's the sister name with the boiling water? Damn, that's the greatest. Put it on the bottom screen. I'm gonna do that one edited.
Okay. You know,
I know who you're talking about though. Yeah,
they didn't. These are people, and she's in office now. Didn't protect any of these people. The fact that black women have got to go through this inflation struggle, and then they talk about the struggles of black women, and they're not doing anything at all for that, except giving you access to terminate your pregnancy, which originally was a white woman's agenda and did not get any traction until they incorporated black women into it. The same way they did with feminism. Feminism was a thing that they was not getting any traction because they were just as anti-black, so they didn't have a base of morality to stand on. Because they were subjugating and oppressing the black community, and then they incorporated women to do that, and then women got on board, and that's how it got traction. The same way with abortion. Now they're speaking of abortion as if abortion is mainly a black woman issue than it is a white woman issue. You have more black women, or they have more black women, let me say, because this was orchestrated. They have more black women speaking on abortion than they have white women, because they want white women to stop having abortions. That's why they really don't want to bring Roe v. Wade back. It's a win-win for them because they're going to talk about it and try to get some votes out of that. But no party wants to bring back Roe v. Wade if we're going to be realistic. That's why they don't have any white celebrities talking about abortion. But they'll have the black ones.
It's not many. Maybe it's because my algorithm too, but I definitely see a lot more of the black ones they got pushing, you know what I'm saying, for that. Although I do know a lot of white women, you know, they do use that as a form of birth control. Birth control.
Yeah, they do.
To be honest, let's just be real. Okay, they out here. That's kind of their thing. But even within that, because I don't like to see women pushing that, especially black women specifically pushing that on black Americans. You know, especially the abortion thing specifically. But honestly, many of the left ideals, I don't really like seeing that. But where a bigger problem comes in at, for me at least, is that some of the men on that side adding on to it. Why do we got brothers like Mark Lamoise Hill? Mark Lamoise, I'm sorry. I gotta do it. They get rid of this. Charlemagne, like they are literally like echoing. They're like echo chambers for some of these Democratic shields, some of the women. They're like out here literally making the same points, and that's what I don't like. That's what I don't like either. Because now we're creating, it's like you're erasing, it's like these black men are adding to the erasure of the masculine heterosexual black man. Yeah. Like the men we really want to see, you know, at the forefront of these political as these political heads. They are replacing them and making them kind of cosplay as the men that we know the men that they know we want to see. And even again going from the younger ones to the older ones, because Charlemagne is what, in his 40s or something like that. D.L. Hughley in his 50s and 60s. But then you got even what's the young brother name who was pretending to be like Martin Luther King? He had that with the afro.
Justin Pearson.
Yeah, even him. You know, he's a bit younger. You know, but these are not the men that I will. These ain't the brothers I'm trying to follow. What the fuck? No. These are not. But these are the ones they want to put up on the platform. Like, look, well, black men are supporting. These are the men. Look, this is what you need to follow. And it's like that's where they're trying to make it seem like there's a gender divide. When it's like, no, we're just not following those black men. The black men we fucking with ain't fucking with y'all. Okay, the ones we're following are not following y'all. Okay. Shout out to even Lord Jamar. You seen Lord Jamar? He endorsed. He endorsed Trump like I saw 2 that. Hours ago, yeah. Like that. So yeah, shout out to the black men that's not necessarily endorsing the right or people on the right, but are thinking outside the box. That aren't stuck on a Democratic platform because we see it. You know, not to say that, you know, just because you are on the right, because there are some brothers on the right that's misguided as well. They tap dancing and, you know, it's gorgeous. But again, at least the ideals that they're pushing for does align more with what we want in our men. Well, some black men in more particular, we actually talked about this on the last For the Culture too, are starting to go right. Okay, so we do got some black men for Trump, blacks for Trump. That's kind of becoming a little more popular as well. I'm not for switching plantations if we're not going to get anything. I'm for where the tangibles at is where we need to be at. If the right ain't got no tangibles, then we need to leave the left, but that don't mean we need to go straight to the right. But maybe we just need to back up from both. But there are a lot of black people that are being more called to the right, you know? How are you feeling about some of the black people that's moving to the right that aren't really going for tangibles, because we look at even some of the things that the left has done. Like they had the reparations, reparations like study in California. Okay, so some people might look at that and be like, okay, well, you know, at least the Democrats, they're trying. It's a study. I think Kamala even said she's for a study for reparations.
She did, yeah, with Charlemagne.
With Charlemagne, right. She said she wasn't going to do nothing before then. Yeah, when she got it with Charlemagne. She kept
true to her word.
She has. We believe her. But of course, when she got with fucking, Charlemagne, one of the brothers I was just talking about, of course she get up there and say that, and he just rolls right past it and allows that to happen. But even with things like that, with the bill happening, but that came from the Democrats, but the Democrats are also the ones that didn't get the bill through. We got nothing from that. We got literally nothing from that, and it was the Democrats that put that forth and ended up blocking it within the end. And so I can understand the frustration that black people are getting, that we are having from coming from the left and trying to show our support there, even with the study. Even though I feel like we should have known that was gonna be some bullshit because it's a study. What are we studying after 400 years? There's not much to study. The proof is right here in the pudding, like that ass. So the study should have already been a red flag. But even those of us who feel like, oh well, we can get something, we're trying. Do you think that that's a good idea for us to bring that same mentality to the right? Because I'm like, to me, it just seems like we're just switching plantations. Maybe if the tactic didn't work with them, it's probably not going to work with them. But that's how a lot of black people are feeling. What you think?
Yeah, a lot of black people are feeling that. And I want to say first off, I can understand because when people feel hurt and betrayed, they tend to do very extreme things. And a lot of people have felt, and a lot of people, I know people, this was in 2020, this is in 2024. A lot of people felt like, I've been a Democrat this long, I believed in all of this stuff, and then now I found out that the Democratic Party's been lying to me, finessing me, neglecting the community. So I'm going to switch over to the Republican Party. And they're not having the same standard, because my whole thing is about what standard do we have as a business transaction for our vote. If we have this vote that our people fought so hard for, then our vote has a lot of weight to it. Our vote has a lot of importance to it. When people bring up the fact that our people died for the right to vote, I don't defeat that. I say, you know what? If that's the case, then that makes our vote more important than everybody else's vote. Because white people didn't die for the right to vote. These people coming over here 2 months ago didn't die for the right to vote, and they're getting the right to vote. So our vote is literally the most important, not just statistically, but morally, than anybody else. So why should our vote be taken for granted? You giving it away is actually disrespectful. You just giving away what somebody died for you to have is disrespectful to the person who died for you to have that. And we should look at that and have that same mentality and ideology, not just with the Democratic Party, but with the Republican Party too. We have this thing where we're stuck and we only see 2 options, like the Matrix is either a red pill or a blue pill. You have to take one of them, but you don't. And when people say, well, I've been taking the blue pill for so long and I haven't gotten anything, and now I see the real information and the real facts, they're lying to me, they've tricked me, so now I'm going to take the red pill and I'm going to just stay with the red pill, instead of realizing that, hey, let me figure out if any of these pills are good for me and have a standard for any of the pill. The problem we have to understand, and I think a lot of people mess up with this, the problem is not a party. The problem is the system of white supremacy. So there is no good party, there is no bad party. Both of these parties are under the same universal system that governs the country and that governs the world. So unless you're looking at, and I'm not going to say don't vote ever, but unless you're looking at your vote from, is this vote going to add into the dismantling of the system of white supremacy, then you shouldn't vote. That's how I see it. There's a lot of black people who have blinded by, okay, well, if you guys, the Democrats, if you're not the good guys, then the Republicans must be the good guys. But there does not have to be a good guy. It's a comprehension thing with a lot of people who feel like there has to be a good guy, and that's out of scared mentality. That's out of a scarce mentality where you feel like if a white savior, it's a lot of us who, through osmosis, subconsciously believe that we need a white savior or a white supervisor, a white person running this, honestly. It's a lot of black people never will admit it, but they honestly do believe that. They believe that we can't do it by ourselves and we need one of them to come and help us out. So that's why they desperately want one of these two to be the good guys. So they get into this thing where if it's like cognitive dissonance, where they lie to themselves and they say, well, you know what? His racism, I'm going to just completely ignore all of that because I want to be on his side, but I'm going to be against racism if it's on his side.
Right.
You know, instead of looking at it the proper way, because you're not going to solve the issue. We've switched parties before. Switching parties is not going to solve the issue. Even starting a party needs to start with the fact that we have to have an agenda that is unified under the premise of dismantling the system of white supremacy.
Absolutely. And I think people get caught up in that because even with us saying like, oh, well, the Democrats owe us. Like, there's a lot of black people saying, oh, well, the Democrats owe us. It's like, at this point, well, the fucking American government owes us.
Yeah, who doesn't owe us? Who doesn't owe us?
So the Republicans owe our asses too. What are we talking about? That's not a reason for us to stay over there because, oh, well, we've been here so long and now they owe us. So eventually they gotta, you know, like running off of that is not, that's a scarce mentality. You know, it's kind of, that's honestly thinking from a place of fear, like you said, because we can do it our own, to be honest, and we can back up and look at both parties for what they are and move accordingly, to be honest, because just running from one side to the other, I don't.
And then what is your leverage? What would be your leverage if you just go over and blindly went over to one side and not the other side? The reason why we don't have any leverage with the Democratic Party is because they feel like we're going to turn out regardless of what they do.
Exactly.
So what would make you think the Republicans are going to not neglect us if we going to say, well, the same thing we were doing with the Democrats, we're going to do with y'all, but hopefully y'all don't do the same thing they did?
Yeah, and the Republicans see that. So if they know that they could just get our vote just from a couple pandering, hey, then from Amber Rose or from whoever the hell, Waka Flocka, I think endorsed Trump as well.
I think so, yeah. And Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne did too?
Yeah, he did.
Lil Wayne endorsed? What did he do that?
Recently, Little Trump got Lil Wayne out of jail. He pardoned him before he left.
Oh, okay. Got you. You know what? I feel like I heard him did say something. Like, he was like something about being pro-Trump before, though. I think I have heard him say that. That's why I didn't know he endorsed him. He officially endorsed him, though. That's kind of say, with the Democrats specifically, the Democrats run most of mainstream media. Okay? Yes. So a lot of their propaganda, that's why I'm like, there's a lot of push. I think Kamala has gotten a lot more push in mainstream media than Trump has, and a lot less criticism because of that. But on a grassroots level, people are still seeing things for what they are, especially because we have so much new black media. Shout out to us that are putting the truth in the forefront, or that is not afraid to criticize the right. So a lot of us are seeing the discrepancies within both sides, and more so within the Democrats, because although, again, they run most of the mainstream media, we're starting to see, well, look how, this is why she's choosing those platforms. This is why all these shields are getting promoted on these platforms. This is why they're having summits on certain platforms with these specific black men, because that side controls a lot. And so then you get into kind of like the conspiracy thing with, like, draining the swamp and, things of that nature, which I ain't gonna say conspiracy, because conspiracy don't mean not real. I don't want people to get wrapped up in that.
Yeah, a lot of people, and that's one of the things that the media is doing now. Anytime they say conspiracy, they make it conspiracy is synonymous with false.
Exactly, like it's fake.
That's not the case.
I'm like, it's not fake. It's not untrue. It's definitely truth to the deep state and all that other shit. It's for sure real. But a lot of people do get caught up in that, and then again, they end up going far right, because it's like, oh, well, Trump is kind of with that. I think Trump was with, like, the whole drain the swamp. I know he's with Elon Musk.
He's talked about that multiple times.
Yeah, so people like him, Elon Musk, him owning Twitter, you see a lot less of that on Twitter specifically. There's not as much propaganda for Kamala. Honestly, there's a lot of anti-Kamala propaganda
on Twitter. Elon Musk been running her down.
For real.
He been putting up memes and AI images and everything, been running her down like they got a personal issue.
For real, so yeah, it's real out in these streets. But even with that, there has been a lot of scaring they've been trying to do to us, like, oh, well, you got to make sure you vote the voting ballots. It's people, they're going to manipulate the votes. They're going to try to say they didn't lose. Donald Trump is not going to want to lose, and stuff like that. Have you been seeing the some of the conspiracies with these voting ballots? I heard one of the voting ballot boxes got blown up or set on fire or something like that. No,
not just one. A few of them. A few of the ballot boxes got somebody put pipe bombs in the ballot boxes, blew the whole thing up. I talked to our brother Torian. Shout out to Torian. I talked to Torian. He said that happened in Washington. It happened in Arizona. I know for sure. It's a lot of little stuff like that. Even in 2020, a lot of people are suspicious about that, and he labeled it all as a conspiracy, so you couldn't talk about it. But overnight, Biden was not doing well. Then a flood of mail-in ballots came in, and it was all for Biden. All like millions of mail-in ballots came in overnight, and it was all for Biden, and he won every swing state. Right. And a lot of people kind of side-eyed that because originally some people saw some videos where with the mail-in ballots, you can literally hide certain ballots and then not count. And if the people who are counting the ballots want somebody to win, they'll just, shred a couple of ballots for one party just to make sure some party win, allegedly. But the thing is that with that suspicion already lingering in people's minds, and then you see this type of stuff, which goes back to what I said earlier, as far as all of the coincidences and all of the voter fraud things that tend to happen, the mistakes, quote unquote, that tend to happen exclusively in the favor of the Democratic Party.
Right. That's what I'm like. They be the main ones talking about trying to scare us into thinking the people on the right could do that. But I'm like, how in the hell every time y'all talk about something happening, it seems to go in y'all favor? Yeah. I'm feeling like this is orchestrated. I'm feeling like y'all throwing rocks and hiding your hands, because I don't think niggas is throwing up. It's really blowing up. I don't think Trump supporters out here blowing up fucking ballot boxes like that. I'm sorry.
I don't think
I just don't see that happening. I don't see that happening for real. But even with the Dems, they will still... and that's one of the tactics they've been using, too, to get black people to come out. They've been using this whole voter ID laws. They can't check IDs. Black people don't have IDs. It's racist because they don't... Nigga, I done had ID since I turned 16. What the fuck what are we talking about? I've never not had an ID. And I done moved to 3-4 different... Nigga, I've always had it. I don't even think I know any black person without at least an ID. We're not even talking about a driver's license, but at least a fucking ID, we have that.
You have homeless people who have IDs. You
have homeless people
who have IDs. And it's not hard to get.
It's not. That's what I'm like, how is that
you know how to get it. The thing is that is not for foundational black Americans.
Right.
That is for illegal immigrants. That they're doing a whole voter ID thing because they don't come in with legitimate paperwork at all. They're not supposed to be here because a lot of them are lying to be here about asylum seekers and everything. But they don't have legitimate identification. So what they're trying to do, what the Democratic Party is trying to do, is they're trying to be all like, well, black people, because we need some support. Because the thing is that most of what their agenda pushes is very off-putting to most of America. Most of America is not really for the extremity of the liberals. The liberals are too extreme. So what they do is, because as foundational black Americans, we're the most influential group of people here. So what they do is they try to get us on board with them. So they're trying to tie voter IDs into something for us. They'd be all like, well, the Republicans, you understand, the Republicans don't want you to have voter IDs. And that means you can't vote. And didn't your grandma and grandpa die for you to have the right to vote? They're doing that because they want us to get on board and to give some type of base to it. So if the Republicans deny it, then black people will call it out to give them the momentum they need to push that agenda. But like you just said, and you didn't even vote. We're not even Democrat or Republican. We still have IDs. Yeah. If somebody wants to vote and they don't have an ID, they can get an ID.
It's not hard.
It's not hard at all. You can get any type of identification. And another problem with not allowing people to have IDs or legitimate IDs is, how do you know, because they have early voting, how do you know one person is not going to vote a dozen times?
If they don't got
if they don't have an ID and I can just walk into a ballot and sign something and then leave, I can do that 20 times in a day.
Don't make sense.
Imagine that. Not only that, I can go into different states. If I wanted to go to a swing state, I could just go to a swing state. They don't check IDs. I can literally go there and swing the state whatever direction I wanted to swing to. It would completely destroy democracy if you don't have any type of vetting process for voting.
Yeah, or proof that you're an actual citizen. That doesn't make sense. And even to add to that, not only did these motherfucking Democrats are wicked. They are diabolical, like for real. Even to add to that, why was I seeing even young students? I seen a video of a mom who had to go into her daughter's school because they were trying to register them to vote. And the parents had no idea. Now, mind you, in high school, some students are, like high school. I mean, when you think about seniors, they can be like 18, 19. So they would be within voting ranges. But as far as when I went to high school, wasn't nobody coming to my school. Wasn't none of my teachers telling me, or my friends, yeah, y'all need to register to vote. That wasn't really prioritized. But because of the no voter IDs, if they don't have an ID in their state, you don't have to provide ID. How can you prove how old they are? How can you prove if they look of age, they look at least 18, which can get real iffy, real, you know.
Yeah, it's arguable.
That's what I'm saying. It get real, you know, like for real. If they do look of age or not, but if they don't have to prove it, how can you tell them no? You could bring a fucking 15-year-old in there to vote. To be honest, have the whole family vote fucking Democrat. And how would they really show and prove that they're not of age? Mm-hmm. But even with that, even having the Dems, because that's who was really behind that, having them trying to slither their way into children's schools so early just to make sure they get a vote, it just shows the level of desperation that they have because shit is crumbling. Their party is being so egregiously exposed. Like, it's being exposed heavily, and it's worse because although they control the mainstream media, there is so much pushback on a grassroots level. There's too much, honestly, pushback on the grassroots level, and not only just from Black Americans, but even white people. You got niggas like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan had Donald Trump on his show for like 3 hours. Okay, no breaks or nothing like that. No little script like Kamala be having. Mm-hmm. And he talks about stuff like things, conspiracies like that all the time. And he wouldn't be considered mainstream media, but there are many, many platforms like his that are pushing, you know, pushing back on the left's ideas.
And that's the importance of what we are doing. That's the importance of this right here. This is because you need things that are not orchestrated for any political party. You need people who are not bought off, or whatever the case is. Now, Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, all of them, they've done things that we don't approve of, or whatever the case is.
For sure.
But the thing is that we know for a fact that they're not a part of the mainstream corporate agenda.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Whether we like their stances on certain things or not, they are their own independent entity, which is why they can have Trump on there and it cannot be a scripted thing. But you have the Breakfast Club, you have BET and the Black Men Summit. These are corporate entities owned by white people that control things for their own political agenda. You know, so you don't even have like, you can say you disagree with Joe Rogan or Elon Musk, but they have their own independence and agency to talk about these things. And this is why this is important, because you're seeing this a lot with Black folk now. You're seeing Black people on TikTok, Black people making YouTube. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to us. We on TikTok too. Shout out to everything we doing. But all over the place. Now you're seeing more independent people thinking, and one of the benefits of that is because a lot of people have the thing of, I'm the lone wolf and I go with the crowd. That's normally how human beings work. They go with the crowd. You know, that's a human thing. Everybody.
Yeah.
And they feel as if I'm the only one to feel this way, then this is the right way to go. I mean, if I'm the only one to feel this way, this is the wrong way to go. So they go with where the majority goes. But if they're starting to see more people push back against the grain and push back against the social construct, the norm, the status quo, then they're going to start to reiterate to themselves and think to themselves, you know what, maybe I was not wrong. Maybe my thought about the Democratic Party wasn't wrong, you know, because I'm saying him saying that and he makes sense. She's saying that, he makes sense, you know, and they start following. And it resonates with them because it's already in their core belief, you know.
And it makes it a lot easier to see those who are puppets. I mean, honestly, for big industry or big corporations in general, but specifically for the left, because you had the left, they was paying off the Shade Room. They was paying off influencers.
TikTokers,
I mean, literally, you know, damn near anybody they can get a check to. Like, for real. I think Dr. Umar said they try to pay him. Yeah. Like, I mean, literally. So... it's very that's when like it's getting very desperate, okay, which was a telltale sign that shit is falling apart, which I love to see, because tell with them names. Now we'll say we got to end this on choosing a side, because, you know, and I think we've already came to our conclusion. I think we articulated these points, not only just here, but even inside the first 2 episodes, that nobody is coming here to save us, you know? Whether we're going left, whether we're going right, there always has to be some motivation. There has to be tangibles. There has to be resources. There has to be something at the forefront for us to be able to get a hold of that brings empowerment to our group. and just running to another side because you're scared the other side is worse, because you're scared. Let me just say this. Black people, we've been through slavery. Don't forget. Don't forget what our ancestors have seen much more atrocious times, egregious, than what the fuck we're going through now. I'm just saying. So if they can survive that, baby, we can survive anything. Okay? So I don't think fear should ever be a part of who we decide to vote for, or how we decide, or if we decide to vote. Fear should not be a part of it. Our ancestors fought too hard for us to be in a space, for us to not have to base things out of fear. And so we have to get out of that mindset, whether you're going to go left or right. Hey, look, I'm just saying, I'm not saying I'm judging you for either side, but what I will say is the ideals, when we look at the bigger picture for the left and the right, the brothers and sisters going right make more sense to me. And I'm not saying we should go there, because I'm not going left or right. I'm not choosing either side. I'm for separation. I'm for us doing for our damn selves. But I'm just saying, if I gotta be honest, the brothers and sisters going right do make a hell of a lot more sense than the brothers and sisters just staying left or going left, okay? But again, we're gonna save ourselves. What you think?
I agree with everything you said. As far as the people going right, the people going left, there's flaws and there's pros and cons to both sides, or whatever the case is. There's none of the sides, like we've been saying, none of the sides are perfect. The sides are flawed. But when you analyze the logic and the reason for people to pick one side or another side, the people who are picking the right, or at least Donald Trump in this election, might not be Republican down ballot, but Donald Trump versus Harris, when you hear their arguments are more thought out. Their talking points are more well researched. They're more logical and less emotional. When you hear the side of Harris, it's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of, well, you don't like black women, or it's a lot of, well, Trump is a dictator and he's a fascist and he's going to take, it's a lot of this scared, emotional boogeyman thing. It's not a lot of logic. It's not a lot of rationale, not nearly a lot of critique. I will be honest, a lot of the black people, because we have different black people. You have black people who are super MAGA. They be wearing the Make America Great Again hat. Donald Trump, they be acting like Donald Trump is Jesus. Yeah. You have that. And then you have black people who are just kind of Republican, and then you have black people who are just this one time for Donald Trump. Right. So it's a spectrum of that. I'm not talking about the extremists, but between the two other aspects of it, they're way more logical when it comes to criticizing Trump and her. The black Trump supporters from those two aspects, they'll actually criticize Trump, be like, yeah, I don't like when he does this. I don't like when he does this. I don't like when he does this. But logically, I'm picking this over that. Yeah. That's not something that you see with the Democrats. What you see with the Democrats is purely emotional. But at the end of the day, the enemy is the system of white supremacy, which is governs both of the sides. It governs both of the sides. So we have to understand that. So for people to think that you can blindly go over and you're going to be led to the promised land by one party, it's not going to happen, because none of the parties have an agenda at all. Let's be honest, where is their agenda, Republican or Democrat? They don't have an agenda. And the Republicans are honest about it, and they're telling the truth. The Democrats are lying about it, but they don't have it either way. None of them do. So what is it? What are we left for? What are we left with? We're left with ourselves. We're left with the community, and we're left with the influence and the power that we have. The thing is that you're not going to figure your way out if you are going along with the system. Right. That's why you said the whole thing about divorcing the system is so very important, because if you're stuck in a maze and you're going left or right, you're not going to think of breaking the wall down if you're only thinking about left or right. You have to take yourself out of that box in order to even come up with a solution, to come up with the concept of a third option. But if you limit your mind to it, you either have this way or you have that way, you won't think about forward. So this is the mindset and the mentality that all black people need to have in our agenda. And then when you think about the way forward, if there's a strategic vote, maybe for a mayor or a senator or whatever, locally, school council or whatever the case is, then you do that for your best interest. You know what I'm saying? But that is the way you think about it forward. You know, you think about what is in the best interest of your community, okay? Not the party, all right? Or not even the politician or the candidate, not even the individual. What is in the best interest of the community? And that's why we need to divorce ourselves from that. We can come up with a third option, and we have come up with a third option. We've done this before, but unfortunately, we kind of got back on the plantation. That's what the original civil rights thing was about. It was about, if we're going to be separate, then you're going to have to come up off that these resources that we built for you. Right. And then that got us led to integration, unfortunately. And then we've kind of been stuck in this thing ever since. We didn't say, well, we just going to have to accept it. No, we said we're going to have to change it. But you can't change it if you're getting led by them, because they don't really want the change. They want the status quo to stay the same. Both parties do.
Exactly. Ultimately, that's what it is, sadly but surely. We live under a system of white supremacy, man. We are all victims, if you ain't white. So, yeah. But I think this was a great conversation. Agree. I'm a little excited to see who win. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little... Because I'm not invested. That's why I didn't vote. I'm not fucking with it. But I'm just honestly, I'm just more excited for the reactions, especially if Trump win the reaction. Because I seen a video the other day of these white people literally crying because when Hillary lost, white one was up there screaming, no! It was us. So if we get some more reactions like that, I am going to be crying tomorrow with laughter. It's going to be hilarious.
Van Jones going to cry either way.
Oh, Lord, Van Jones. Lord Jesus. Another buck broken shield from the left side.
He's going to cry either way.
He probably is going to cry. You're right. Exactly. If she win, he probably going to cry too. Because he cried when Joe Biden won.
America's really coming together.
Exactly. So I think I'm more excited to see the reactions to who wins, but I am curious. I do think Trump is going to win, so we're going to see.
Logically, he should, but we don't know. As the filming of this is before the final results of the election. So we don't have a solid we looked at the swing states. It was kind of going either way. We don't know.
We'll see.
But when you see this, the results will be in, and we'll find out.
We're going to see. I don't know. All right. Well, this was a great podcast. I appreciate you having me on, brother. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. But y'all make sure y'all follow me at Zeze Rants on all platforms, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, A2C TV, all that. Okay.
Afro Elite, mainly on YouTube, Afro Elite on Instagram, The Afro Elite on Twitter. There's a lot of fake pages, so The Afro Elite on Twitter, people do that. Afro Elite on all the TikTok and everything else, all right? Mainly YouTube.
All right, and that is a wrap, baby. That's for the culture. That's it.